You're listening to The Secrets of Sacred Art, where we unearth the hidden treasury, history, and deeper meaning in religious and sacred art. We're your hosts, Kathryn Laffrey.
And I'm Alix Murray. Welcome to episode 23, Turning Darkness into Light. In this episode, we will explore the art and images of the Book of Kells. Please follow The Secrets of Sacred Art in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. For a fuller experience, you can join us on the SQPN YouTube channel, where you can see all the images we're discussing on this show. You can find us on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, on X at SQPN, or on Instagram at StarQuest Network. And I want to really encourage everybody today, really take a look at the visual side of this, because that's what this whole thing is going to be about today.
Oh, yeah.
There's just so much to look at, so much to take in, and it's so beautiful.
Very beautiful.
Yes. So we can't wait. This is just the beginning of the adventure in Celtic art, but this is a fantastic place to start, the Book of Kells. But before we delve into this glorious example of sacred art, I want to share with everyone where the title of this episode comes from. And this was often referenced in The Secret of Kells, the film that we discussed in last season. And they're always talking about turning darkness into light. Well,
and that one scene always freaked me out. So I'm shocked to know where exactly this line came from.
I know.
Because what was that little girl's name?
Oh, I can't remember. You have to watch the show.
The little fairy, when she says, turn darkness into light. She was so scary. But okay, where's it really come from, Alix? I need a better visual.
There you go. It's not just from the Secret of Kells. It's a quote from Psalm 18:28. You, the Lord God, keep my lamp burning and turn darkness into light.
That's a prettier visual.
I know, but that was, but you think about the contrast. We're so used to illumination, like artificial light. But really, when you think about how a majority of the human beings have lived and experienced light, there's been a lot of darkness out there. Sometimes I wonder, is that part of why there was this drive to create such beautiful art? Because, you had a limited amount of time. You had the materials that you had to work with. You really had to work really hard to produce. And of course, these sorts of manuscripts, I don't think they weren't using candlelight to work because of the risk of fire. So they were working with the natural light. And I just wonder if that was a really important thing, to just capture that sunlight that they were working on. And quite frankly, on Iona, it's probably not a daily occurrence. Let me just put it that way.
Well, I can say from working experience on my embroidery work, I have a really good magnifying lamp. That's nice. But I was shocked at how well I could see the tiniest stitches when I took my embroidery with me on a trip. Yeah. And sat in open sunlight, just on the edge of a balcony with full light shining on my work. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier to do. And I didn't even need my magnifier. So So I just think that drive to keep that light, even if then what you have to provide light for you in the evenings or something, to just have these really beautiful, colorful manuscripts just come alive in that kind of light. And if you want to feel the experience of bringing light into the darkness and just overcoming the darkness, go to the Mammoth Caves in Kentucky. There is a huge section of the cave that was also once used for gathering spaces for people. And when they take you in there, they say, please hold the hand of your children and don't move. And they shut all the lights off. Yeah. It is so dark and you cannot see your hand in front of your face. And And then they say this is how they used to illuminate this place when they would come in here for gatherings. He lights one torch and flings it up onto a ledge above us, and the whole place lit up.
Wow.
One little oil-soaked rag of a torch.
Yeah.
And it's just, talk about, bringing
That's like when you went to the Lascaux caves. Those caves are really dark. And what draws people into these dark places, and then they light it up, and then they create art.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Exactly.
It's like, that's a little bit of a tangent, but kind of a cool one. I mean, these are the kinds of things that you wonder about looking at something that's so extraordinary, like the Book of Kells. Now, before we delve into it, Kathryn, I want you to tell me, like, I guess 2 questions. So when did you first start, when did you become aware of like Celtic sacred art? And when did you become aware of the Book of Kells?
Celtic art, not necessarily sacred art.
Yeah. I mean, it could be Celtic sacred art, but just Celtic art. Yeah.
Celtic art in general, probably high school.
Okay.
Everybody was into drawing knots, making knots, the knotted bracelets and all kinds of fun things like that. Sacred art would be 2 sources. One was Daniel Mitsui's work about 10 years ago. Found him on another blog and then just deep dive into it because of all the little knots and details. And then, in particular, the Book of Kells was a video done by David Clayton for the Institute of Catholic Culture. And we'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, good.
Just kind of a good introduction to it. And then he mentioned that there was an app that had every single page. Yeah. And I was just, I don't care how much the app costs. I love that because I do love going on the internet and looking for manuscripts, especially if they have page by page where you can feel like you're flipping through the whole book. Yeah. Because it's such an inspiration for me. There's so many different styles and yet similarities, and you see that long-term tradition that's been handed on throughout the centuries.
Absolutely. That's the thing. It's another way of understanding the tradition and the history and the journey the church has made throughout the world and throughout the people who've been a part of her. And I love that. Now I have to say, I had the app, then I don't have my iPad anymore. But a couple of months ago, I was in a nearby village. And if you can see just behind me, how do I do this? Yeah, just behind me here. I was walking past a bookshop, and this was in the window, and it was like 9:30 in the morning because I had to go to the butcher's. And you want to go to the butcher's early Saturday morning. And so, of course, I'm like, I stop. Oh my gosh. And I saw it. The shop wasn't open yet, and I called anyway, and the woman was upstairs, and she's like, I'm just finishing my breakfast. And I'm like, I'm standing right here right now.
Oh my gosh. Way to be a demanding American.
Come down here. I think I've learned from other Americans that it's not the demanding American. It's me. It's just me.
Okay.
Because I always have this feeling like whatever I'm super interested in, everybody else is interested in. Like, I've got to get this thing before there's a big run on it. And that's what I thought about this book. I mean, for all I know, this book had been sitting in the window for like 12 months, whatever. Anyway, this right now, I've got to get it. And it has all of the pictures, or all of the folios as well. And It's just lovely to just sit and spend time and just look at it page by page. And then it also has like very detailed history of it. So it's beautiful. If somebody could you could get it online, I'm sure. It's so beautiful. So I've got it back there. And look how nice it just goes in my house. But anyway, so let's start with it. Let's bring up the first slide that I have, and this is just to kind of help get your see the Book of Kells in context with the other insular manuscripts. And I have to say that the insular Gospels are the Gospels of Saints Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And they are written in the Vulgate, or the Latin translation of the Bible by St. Jerome in the 4th century. And these books have been more predominantly produced by Irish monks, either residing on the islands off the coast of the British Isles, or in the case of the Lichfield Gospels, this was on the mainland. And recently there's a lot of evidence to show that it was actually created in Lichfield, at Lichfield Cathedral, which is so cool.
Okay.
And they're highly decorative, beautifully. They're extraordinarily beautiful. And one of the sources that I used estimated that the average age of the monks who produced these books was 18. And their reasoning was because you would need such extraordinarily keen eyesight in order to do some of this work. But I'm kind of like, well, the youth doesn't follow that youth means good eyesight, you know? I mean, there are people.
I don't know, Alix. I got my glasses now.
I know. Well, the thing is, I mentioned this to my youngest daughter, and she's like, that doesn't make any sense because grandma has better eyesight than I do. I said, yeah. So because, there are some people now, and I did read another article about this, and it's on spectrometry or something. Sorry.
Okay.
I tried looking at this word 1,000 times, and I should have written it down, but
seeing with both eyes.
It is seeing with both eyes, but doing it in such a way and creating it so that it looks almost three-dimensional. But they've done it on such a small and minute scale. We're talking about millimeters. Some of these, the lines are millimeters apart, and they're even all the way down. So there's kind of this theory that they probably had some kind of aid to help them do this, and whether it was like a natural crystal that magnified, who knows, and we might not ever know until we find something. But
so it's fun to see how they drew from, that information that we have into making the movie.
Yes.
Where they had the little crystal, and then young Brendan helping out. So
exactly, St. Columbkill's Eye, and there was something called St. Columbkill's Eye. Nobody knows what that was, but if we take a look at this timeline for the insular Gospels, we've got the Durham Gospels, which were from the late 6th century, the Book of Douro, which is around 700 or the 8th century, the Lindisfarne Gospels. And those were 1715 to 1720. So they're a little more accurate in how long it took to make those Gospels, which is incredible.
That is incredible.
The Lichfield Gospels, again, 730 or the 8th century. I hope I didn't say 17. I meant 715 to 720.
Yes, you could.
17, okay. The Hereford Gospels from 780. And the Book of Kells, which is from the 9th century. And they're not quite sure how long it took to complete the Book of Kells because it's just so highly decorated. And that's kind of like the zenith of all of these books. And the last one was really interesting, and we'll have a little example of it, is the Book of Deer. And it's a manuscript, not on the scale of the others, but I think it was more for like an individual's, almost like divine office. So I'll have a little example of that one as well. And that is the oldest book in Scotland. On I guess the monastery of Deer. I don't know where that is.
Okay.
Except that it's in Scotland.
I did have to look up insular.
Oh, did you?
I did.
I guess I should. Okay, well then, since you looked it up, why don't you share with the audience what it means? I'm sorry, I should have.
Well, that's okay. No, I mean, like the first thing that comes up is like a modern use of it is like being isolated. But then you can see how that's derived from an island. So coming from an island. So yes, anything in your island nation there.
yes, is an insular. So this is why they're called the insular Gospels, because they were probably created on the various islands off the coast of Britain or the British Isles. So the Book of Kells is just, as I said, considered the height of achievement in these insular gospels. And so if we can go to the next slide, and this is just a little bit of an example, and I love this little monk holding his book. But I wanted to use these images because I also have a quote. So this is the earliest quote we have describing the Book of Kells is by Geraldus Cambrensis. I think he was called Gerald of Wales, and he's from the 13th century. And he said, quote, "This book contains the harmony of the four evangelists, according to Jerome, where for almost every page there are different designs, distinguished by varied colors. Here you may see the face of majesty, divinely drawn. Here the mystic symbols of the evangelists, each with wings, now 6, now 4, now 2. Here the eagle, there the calf, here the man, and there the lion, and other forms almost infinite. Look at them superficially, with the ordinary glance, and you would think that it is an erasure and not tracery. Fine craftsmanship is all about you, but you might not notice it. Look more keenly at it, and you will penetrate to the very shrine of art. You will make out intricacies so delicate and so subtle, so full of knots and links, with colors so fresh and vivid, that you might say that all this were the work of an angel and not of a man."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he's right. You just keep looking and looking. And this, as I was reading about this, I'm trying to get his book. It's really fascinating because he just traveled around Britain in the 13th century, and he is describing these different monasteries. And it's from his book that we get this description of the Book of Kells. And the way he describes it, indeed, this is just a quote, but he goes into much more detail. Mm-hmm. So obviously, who's ever showing him this book is very knowledgeable about what it is, and they're teaching him what he's looking at. So I've tried to find that book. So I'm still looking because I would love to read the rest of it, because we might be able to find out some more information about the Book of Kells and in turn the other insular manuscripts.
And that description was written about 400 years after the book was created?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was still in pretty good condition at that point. And at that point, it was probably, it was at Kells at that point, because it was removed from Iona. So just going on, it is believed that the Book of Kells began on Iona, and we talked about that holy island in our last episode. And it was later taken to the monastery at Kells on the mainland of Ireland after a series of Viking raids on Iona. And it was housed at Kells until 1661, when it was taken to Trinity College in Dublin. And that was because the bishop of that part of Ireland was really afraid that Cromwell's men, in their dissolution of the monasteries, were going to destroy it, because they'd already destroyed a lot. And it has remained at Trinity College ever since. And you can go see it. They have package deals, which I'm going to be looking at.
I must recommend people to look at Trinity College's website, particularly on their Book of Kells. I was looking just the other day, and some of the exhibits and the way that they allow you to experience the images. There's like a 360 experience where you can be sitting into the image. I was like, that's awesome.
Sounds so cool. Oh yeah, and you know what? They also have at Trinity College, they have the oldest harp in Ireland there.
Oh,
I know. It sounds really cool. I want to go. I just need to go. So
I wish we could just do that as a road trip, Alix.
Where are transporters when you need them?
Right.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
So the Book of Kells is made of vellum, which is processed calf skin. And the pages were divided into quires, and that's Quires. And I'm going to provide a link in the show notes so people can see what a quire is. But it's basically folding the vellum twice. So you fold it like down the middle, and then you fold it again, and then they cut one of the edges, and that's how you get a choir. And so it's estimated that they had at least 150 calves were needed for this. And here on this diagram, you can see how they would have according to the size of the calf. So the younger the calf, the finer the vellum, and the better it was to work with. So as I was reading this part, even though I know these calves died in the 9th century, I was still kind of sad.
Oh my gosh. And I'm thinking, yeah, not only is it the finer the vellum, but the best field chops ever.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry, folks.
Oh my gosh. No, I was like, oh my God. I just spend way too many times looking at all the little calves with their mums out in the hillsides here. And at least they're with their mummies before then.
The cutest ones are tasty. I'm sorry, folks.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So, I mean, I'm still I like steak, but just reading about this, I'm like, oh my gosh. So there were two kinds of calves. So they would have some that were, the smaller ones could only get 2 choirs out of them. And the larger ones, which would have been between 3 and 6 months, you could get 2 sheets out of the vellum. And it was just a long process to even do this. But it was not a mass slaughtering to get all the pages at once. No, not at all. And so to get at least 150 calves were needed for this. That means that the monks would have to have access to a very large herd or herds of cattle to be able to produce this number of calves. And at the time this book was made, wealth in Ireland was measured by the heads of cattle rather than land or gold, and that was even in pre-Christian Ireland. So the fact that they were able to access this number of calf hides for the vellum is just an indication of the wealth that they had access to. So that was the whole point of my showing this. And also, I think it's interesting to see how they use this, and they would actually prepare it. It was very highly skilled people did this. And I'm also going to provide a link to a video of an artist in Ireland who actually does the whole process from creating vellum all the way to the illumination of the manuscript. He's doing it on his own, but that's not how it would have happened in this community. You would have had people doing different. They would be at different stages of the process of the vellum and the illumination and preparation and everything, all the way from making sure the calves were nicely fed and the herds were looked after as well. So this was a big operation. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching a video from the Getty Museum about making manuscripts. And it was fascinating to watch the production of the vellum all the way through, scoring it and all that other stuff. So it's a neat process to watch and to just see how things were done. We're so used to everything being made for us. We just walk in the store and grab it.
Yeah.
But to see the start to finish of something and everything that goes into it, you can see even more so how precious these items would be.
Yes, because of course, because they would have been very conscious that this young animal had given its life for this. And I still think, when things are easily accessible, you don't really appreciate them and you don't use them in a way that's necessarily good or respectful, and then, but if you have to grind the pigments to make the paint that you're going to use, and you've got to slaughter a calf and you've got to stretch, skin it and prepare the vellum, I don't think you're going to just go, I'm just going to scribble whatever on this. The effort, and you can see the sacrifice. You need to make something beautiful from it. And they certainly did. And so I kind of wonder about the ease and accessibility of life, how much that contributes to low quality art. But again, that's another discussion, I guess.
Which is why I'm looking forward to our next episode, because Daniel Mitsui still works on vellum.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So it'll be fun to talk to him about the experience.
Absolutely. Okay, so if we can go on to the next one. So this is so the pigments used, and I'm just using. I have these two images just to show you an example of how highly pigmented it is. Yes, yeah. Just kind of look at this. The pigments used were locally sourced, and they used things such as oak gall ink for the black. And oak gall or oak apples are where they're made on oak trees from wasps laying their eggs inside the bark of the oak, and then in order to protect itself, the oak forms this almost like this cast or something around the larva, and so the wasp develops inside that. And then the tree's not damaged. And then I guess the wasp larva lives. But the result is you have these little round balls on oak trees. And they've made ink from that. And they're all different recipes. There's not one recipe. But so that was used for the black. And that was, I think, the most used pigment in the Book of Kells, which makes sense when you think about the
oak gall.
Yeah. And,
that's like the dark brown.
Yeah,
the
or
black.
It's supposed to be black.
The black was with ash in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, whatever source I can't even remember which one I got this from. But yes, but I think the oak gall ink was the most predominantly used pigment in the whole thing. And but they also used lapis lazuli, which at that time could only be sourced from Afghanistan, and it was originally bound and set with expensive jewels and an encrusted cover, but that cover was ripped from the book and stolen a long time ago. But most of the Book of Kells does remain. So thanks be to God. And so now let's just take a look at the book. But before we move on to that, Kathryn, do you have any comments about these two images that we have from the Book of Kells?
I mean, it's neat to see having the four gospel writers presented in two different ways within one book. It's fascinating, just the way that it's set up that way. So I would, at first glance, I was like, wait, did she pull this from another book? The one that's in the square rectangular format. I was like, okay, yeah, that's from the Book of Kells, but the one that's in the X format,
almost like the St. Andrew cross, almost.
Yeah. So I was surprised that it was from the same book.
Yeah. Because I think it is theoried that there were 4 different monks that worked on this predominantly. And they've all been given different names, but one was, a highly skilled. Well, they were all highly skilled. Let's be realistic. Maybe some were better skilled at writing, at calligraphy, and others were better at coloring and that sort of thing. But one of the things that I found out about the symbols of the 4 Gospels, and you probably know this because you've studied the Old Testament in a much more depth than I've done at the moment. But
and I've done a painting featuring the 4 Gospel creatures.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And this is a reference to the Old Testament description of God by was it the prophet Elijah? When
there was a foreshadowing.
Yes.
And then even in Revelation.
Yes. So these 4, the gospel writers are symbolized by these 4 attributes of God. Man-like, like a lion, like an eagle, and like a bull. So so we've got 2 different versions, and I think these are clearly done by 2 different illuminators, artists, monks, whatever you want to call them. I think the second one almost looks like it's almost jewel encrusted. It looks almost like cloisonne or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's really pretty. And there's actually a third image of the 4 gospel writers that I've come across So for anyone who goes out there and gets the app or finds the book online, another image uses circles.
Yes. Yeah.
So
is that the carpet page?
No, this is actually, I don't know if they call it the carpet page or not, but this is folio 129V is another. So you guys get to go exploring, find some images.
Exactly. And yeah, and I should say that every single page has, it's called a folio, and it's going to be numbered, and then it's going to be, I guess, either R or V after it. But if you're curious about looking something up, or maybe finding a theory or a description of it, then you look up, if you type it into to do a search on it, be sure you have all of everything, the number and the correct letter, to make sure you get the right page, or else
the V is for versio, or the front side, and then the R is for
reverse.
Recto, or
Recto.
the back side.
Yes,
yep.
Exactly. So anyway, yeah. All right. So so let's go on to the next slide. I think and this one is really interesting, and I'm going to take a little while. And as I said, this is why you really need to take a look at these images, because they're so fascinating. And this first one, folio 29R, is the beginning of the genealogy of. This is the beginning of the Gospel of Matthew, and it is Liber Generationis. And actually, when you look at this image, it spells out Liber Generationis, and this is something that it almost reminded me. And I don't know anything about like the history of writing and alphabets and characters and how to understand and read things in another language, but without, I guess, an alphabet, as we have one letter right after another. But this first image on the left, this is something that would have been read by the monks. They would have been able to read this and understand what it's saying. And I kind of liken it to, you know how you have some Japanese and Chinese characters that you look at this image, these series of strokes, and you get an entire concept out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I wonder if this might have been something similar that the monks were using with the Celtic influence in writing. So if you look at it, it's starting at the top left, and if you kind of come down where there's like a curved sign, that would be the L.
Okay.
And then right next the vertical line going down that's got like the circle in the middle, that's the I. So L-I. And then if you come back up a little bit and you see like a circle with a little line coming up from the top, that's the B.
Okay.
And then inside the B, there's an E and an R, and they kind of are holding hands together. They're holding each other. And that spells the word Liber, so the book. And along the line here, on the right-hand side, you've got like these very straight, knotted, what would you call it? Just, a vertical line, a horizontal line, a vertical line. So it's very square. That is the G. And inside the G is generaciones. And yes. So when you would look at that, you would be understanding. You would so you wouldn't necessarily have to find all of those different little letters, which are certainly, they're hidden in there. And it's kind of, I thought it was just amazing when I was reading about it and I was pulling it out and, oh my gosh, I can read this. But I think somebody could look at that. They could look at that from a distance, and they would know what was going to be read at the Mass.
Wow.
I know.
That's beautiful.
I know.
I mean, they take, initial letters to the extreme, where you have like the simpler ones later on. You'll see in other manuscripts where it's just a big capital letter with a nice little drawing inside of it. This is the lettering as the drawing.
Exactly. But as I said, but if you were, say you were attending Mass and this was being used and it was up at the altar, if you could see this, you would be able to tell from that what was being read. And I find that fascinating. Or if it was on display, or if it was processed on certain days. And if this was held up, can you imagine if this was being held up and processed and you knew what you were looking at? This is like, I don't know what you would call this. This is a type of literacy, but also understanding things through images. So it's not just reading word for word for word. It's reading a concept in this image. And this is what I find so fascinating with these books.
Very nice.
So, and the next folio 30V, this is the page that follows the Liber Generationis, and this is the genealogy of Christ. And what's interesting about this one is this page was unfinished. Yeah, and it's interesting, like some things were, some parts of it were, and you can see, I can really see it well in the book that I have, because I think it's actually the same size as the real Book of Kells, and they've just done really, really high quality photographs, and you can see the very light scoring around the lettering, and then they've just laid down the first colors they've laid down there are I think blues, a little bit of green, but predominantly the yellow. Which is so it's really fascinating to see some of the ones that are finished and some that aren't at all. And you wonder, why wasn't this finished?
It's fascinating too on the app when I look at those pages. How the yellow really draws out that cross shape. So you have that sense that this is pointing to something about Christ, and it's,
yes, exactly. Yeah. And there's one, I don't know if we're going to I don't know if it's in our list of slides, but there's one where I think it's Christ in glory, enthroned, but on the back there's an image of him being crucified. So they've it's so cool. So cool. I know. All right, so let's take a look at the next one. So this is interesting. So this is, again, from the Book of the Book of Matthew, and it is folio 114R, and this is the arrest of Christ. And you can see the text above, and you can actually see some notes that have been taken, which is kind of cool above that. I can't imagine someone taking notes, but I guess, take notes in their Bibles. And this was, kind of like taking notes. But you can see Christ in the garden. You can kind of, and it's interesting, like these walls maybe, and then maybe even a foreshadowing of his crucifixion with the two crosses on either side. But what I think is fascinating is the two dragons or snakes above him, and they're almost like breathing out, these twisted knots of flames or smoke or something. And it is just, look at I love the way you have the folds of his robe. And again, going back to our episode when we talked about colors and sacred art, and he's clothed with the red, but underneath that is the blue. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful work. And the combination of colors on the walled garden on either side of him is fabulous too. The blues, the greens, the oranges. This is one of the feature pages on the app. So I'm pitching the app. I highly recommend it. But so on this page, they've done a super high resolution edition of it so that you can then zoom in on the tiny little details. Yeah. Lots of fun to do. I mean, I get lost in this app a lot. It's fun to zoom in. Yep. Zoom in. You talked about the
dragons, almost their lion-like heads at the top. And the tracery that's coming out from either of their mouths looks like their tongues completely knotted and tied together.
Tongue-tied.
And it's they're tongue-tied. There you go.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And it's neat just to follow all of that. Just the fact that, all the garden vining, beautiful. And then each of those columns in those little squares, smaller and smaller tracery. I mean, we talked about the little details showing the infinite of God. One of my favorite thought things as a kid when I learned this in math class was you look at your ruler, and between every little segment on your ruler, it can be divided up even smaller and even smaller and even smaller. Yeah. And that's showing the infinite within, and we have the infinite without, because the measurement can go on and on and on forever.
Exactly.
Outward.
Yeah.
So it's just, you think of this as that representation of God's infinite, smaller and bigger.
Exactly. And, when you look at, as you were talking about this, I'm just looking at the way Christ is, his stance, his posture almost echoes the cross.
Oh,
already, and it also, I think we've got this one. And even his robes, see how his robes kind of have this X, almost like I'm thinking about the St. Andrew's cross, which was so meaningful and important to the Scottish people. And I think we have in one of our slides another image from a different gospel of his crucifixion. And there's definitely that X. So it's almost like, even though these are done by different monks with different skills and different styles, somewhat different styles, there's a cohesiveness, there's a unity to all of it, which is so beautiful.
Yeah. Is this what you're talking about?
It is. It is.
There it is.
Yeah. So I think, shall I thank the patrons, or would you like to?
I'll thank our patrons.
Yeah.
All right, because we can't do this without them.
Exactly.
So thank you to our patrons. And today we'd especially like to thank Warren C., Mary B., Albert A., and Scott H. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Sacred Art and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So thank you, patrons.
Yes, thank you very much. So now back to, this is something, and I just thought about this when you're talking about, thanking our patrons. These things were done by patrons as well. It was through their generous donations that something like this was, that we're enjoying this today. But,
exactly.
So this is another, I was wrong about a different book. It is from the Gospel of St. Matthew, and it is the crucifixion, and it's, then they crucified Christ, and with him 2 thieves, and that's what this says. And this is just, I love this. I just, where did they get the vision to do this kind of work? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And there's just so much to take in this. And again, if you saw this from a distance, if you saw just this image from a distance, it's not just an image. It's not just words. It is an image with the words supplementing the concept. Does that make sense? Because that's what it is. Because you wouldn't be able to read the words however many feet you were away from this. Or maybe you weren't literate. Maybe you couldn't read. But you could look at this image and you would be able to grasp multiple concepts, high theological concepts from it. And that's powerful. That is so powerful. And it's beautiful on top of it. On top of all of it, it's beautiful. And so we can kind of, I don't want to spend a super long time, because we don't have a super long time. But just if you look at the first word, tune, of tune crucificiarunt, the T is this you've got two creatures here, a lion. So, but the T is one of the creatures, and he's kind of curved in on himself, and you can see like his hind feet. He's like stretched out, like he's got this long neck that comes around, and his claws are holding on to the edge of one of the borders, and his back legs and his tail are kind of hanging down. It's like my cat.
Yeah.
But that creature's body forms the T of tune or tunk. Sorry, not tune, tunk. And then this other creature forms the border of the entire image. And I guess it could be a lion. I don't know if it's a lion. If we were talking, what are your thoughts about the lion? You had some thoughts about lion that you wanted to bring up.
Well, it was interesting because you mentioned this as a crucifixion page, and the creature that's forming that outer border has like a lion's like head, he has a bit of a mane. And when you said crucifixion right away, I thought of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah.
Because the lion was, that representation of Christ and his sacrifice. And, I almost wondered, did that have any influence?
C.S. Lewis would absolutely be aware of this. Absolutely. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I find interesting is all of these spectators.
Yes.
I mean, are they viewing the crucifixion? Are they, how much are they participating in it themselves?
And I hope if people have a chance, watch this on YouTube on your big screen TV, hit pause, and go ahead like you're a little kid and walk up to the screen and just take a good look at it.
Yes.
Because what looks like in a small screen, just 5 little dots, are faces.
Yes. And not only that, you've got even smaller dots that are forming all of these interesting designs all around it, not to mention the tracery knotwork, not to mention the wings of the creatures that are even inside the other creatures. I mean, it is an adventure in itself.
Yes.
It really, really is. Yeah. So let's take a look at a couple of more, Kathryn. We can.
Yeah.
So this is the opening page of the Gospel of St. John, and folio 292R. Again, so the first image of Christ and enthroned. This is the one, Kathryn. This is the one.
Okay.
Yes, and sadly, during a binding, it had a really insensitive rebinding of the book in the early 19th century.
Oh.
So much so that people in the 19th century were outraged and horrified by how badly done the binding was. And during this binding, whoever did it, I cannot imagine doing this. They cut off the face, the head of Christ.
At the top.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine? Like, what were you thinking? You should just be like, maybe I shouldn't do this. And you can see how it's also cut out. You can see on the second image of the page of the Gospel of John, how some of the images have been cut off as well. It's just, yeah. So, but if you look at that, you can see the 2 hands and the feet with nails in them, and then Christ enthroned. So that's a really wonderful way of communicating the resurrection, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
it's interesting. The little circles on either side of Christ enthroned there. That goes all the way back to our sun and moon episode.
Yeah.
Where you talked about the fans that were used.
That's right.
And the
still
different
used.
ceremonies. Still used. Yes, still used.
Yeah.
In different rites of the Mass.
Yeah. So this one is, the colors in this are just extraordinary and so rich. And there's so much depth. The depth of the color, the depth of the artistry, and the depth of the concepts and the message that they were communicating, I think, at a very high level to people who were at Mass, to the monks who were using this book to pray. I mean, this was, and of course, sadly, a lot of it has been lost to us.
Yeah.
But we're going to try to figure out like this, as we go through these different books, instead of being overwhelmed by the beauty. Well, we can be overwhelmed by the beauty, but we don't want to be overwhelmed by our ignorance. So we're going to be really trying hard to share and unlock all kinds of secrets in these manuscripts as best we can this season. So this is just the beginning. So, but
well, that's funny you said that, because the image of the two on the right is in the beginning was the word.
Yeah. Yes. 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 In Principio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is again one of those feature pages on the app, and with each feature page, they give you little details too. So they'll tell you what is it saying, if there's any special.
I'm sorry. I can see the I, and I'm sure. But also, this book, like the letters and everything, they were just turned around, and some things are upside down and sideways. But you would look at that and go, in the beginning was the Word.
Yeah.
The Word was made flesh. I'm sure it says,
yeah. I know.
Wow.
Yeah, we're introducing many rabbit holes to our audience to go explore.
Yeah, there are lots, and we're going to be putting a lot of stuff in the show notes as well. So it's worth delving into that. Okay.
I had to do one zoom in on the previous page. First of all, seeing the detail in the halo around Christ.
I know.
The closer you get, the more details you see. That's what sacred art's supposed to do. Draw you in, get you looking for details.
Yeah.
And give you a truth there. And then the cross on either side, the intricacy of these knots. It's fun just to take a pencil and try to follow it. It's like, oh man. For me, I'm always looking at stuff going, how would I draw it? I want to try to figure it out.
Well, do you know what? It's interesting. I came across a very annoying article when I first started doing my research on this. And the title of I was probably like clickbait, and I fell for it. Okay. I fell for it. And it was, what mushrooms were these monks eating when they made this? And I'm like, they weren't. And so I read it, and actually they were just like, oh, this is so crazy. This is so amazing. They had to, maybe they were, on drugs to do this. And I'm like, they couldn't have been. If you've ever tried to make one little Celtic knot, you will know you have to be pretty darn sober to do it, and well rested. But then, fortunately, I found a counter article written by one of the librarians from Trinity College, saying that the skill and the carefulness needed to do this, you wouldn't be on any kind of drug. It's very rigorous, highly skilled work. And it's not just this slap dab thing like an abstract piece of contemporary art where you could, partake in whatever, imbibe in whatever you wanted to and put something together and it looks kind of cool. She was saying when you look down on a microscopic level with these things, these monks were very highly skilled. Don't insult their intelligence by thinking they were on drugs.
And I love that you said look down at a microscopic level at this. Because whenever I see these intertwining knots, first thing I'm like, why? Why are they doing these so many different knots everywhere? Then the first thing that came to my mind was I knit you in your mother's womb.
Yeah.
You think about all the little details God puts into each one of us.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and they were doing this without. Well, the tools they had were compasses, rulers, quills, and probably some kind of other sharp writing implement or instrument to score the vellum and just This is interesting. I want talk about this.
Yeah. So I wanted to put this image in here. So this is the image of Mary with Jesus on her lap, the one on the left from the Book of Kells. And she has the angels surrounding her. And also wanted to show you what another image at the same time period of Mary with Christ on her lap looked like, to see the similarities. So there's a good continuity of what we're portraying, and yet the slight differences based on region. So the one is from the country of Georgia, and then the other, the Book of Kells. So vast difference in location between these two. But the gospel spread and was carried out and out and out to these different regions. And you can see, though, that we still have Mary in her robes, very similar. And the way Christ is on her lap. The one striking difference is that Christ in the Book of Kells, his face is turned profile, which is normally not done in the iconographic tradition. You want to see both eyes to see the full person.
Yeah.
And so this is a little different. The other thing that I liked about the Book of Kells image is you have to look closely at Christ has one hand reaching up to Mary and his other hand is grasping hers.
Yeah.
Which is a favorite image of mine from Our Lady of Perpetual Help, where Christ's hand is with her hand. And so it's really neat to kind of see an earlier version of that reaching out, that perpetual help, how Mary helps us as she helped Christ when he was a young child.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I was also looking at what the angels are holding. Initially, I thought they were holding his instruments of torture, like Our Lady of Perpetual Help, but it looks like they have fans, like, that we talked about early on. So it looks like they might be holding something like that as well.
I'm trying to remember if this is the one where one of them is holding incense. It's hard to tell.
Yes. He's down at the bottom right as I'm looking at it. He's on the bottom right, but then the other ones have the fans.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And you've got these observers just at the bottom, the lower right-hand side. There are 6 men, looking to the right, which probably means that you're to turn the page. They're looking, they're like staring, like turn the other page. Turn the page.
I almost wonder if they're like, monks doing the divine office.
yeah, they could have been. Absolutely. Why not? But the colors in this is just extraordinary.
Singing the Magnificat.
Yeah, absolutely.
I find it interesting. This is the first image I've seen where Mary's halo is solid and see-through at the same time. You can actually see the angel wings behind her.
Yeah. And also, Christ doesn't have a halo at all.
Right. Which I found surprising.
Me too. It could have been just a stylistic call, but it's kind of strange. And he has a beard and mustache. Just kidding.
Short beard.
A little bearded baby.
Nice.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see. Oh.
And then one more. I love this one just for the colors. And before Alix and I started recording today, we're like trying to decipher this. What does it say? I'm so glad you were able to pick up the first word, Alix, because that kind of helped in our discovery. So, So what was our first word there?
The first word is erot. And erot, oh no, I forgot what the other ones were. I wonder if I don't have it. Oh no. But it's, and he was crucified between 2 thieves. That's what this is. So this is the Gospel of Mark, 15:25. And I don't have my Latin Bible up.
Oh, that's okay.
Anymore.
I got my Bible up.
Oh, wait a minute. I found it.
You found it. Okay, go.
Yeah. So, let me find. So it's erat autem ora tertia et crucifixerarunt eum. So it is erat autem, and I think the second part where the angel is autumn, but I can see the AU. I can't see anything else there. But then in the third line, I definitely can see the word ora, and then the beginning of the word tertia. Tertia. So, which is fascinating. And then underneath, you can make out the word crucified.
And it was the third hour when they crucified him. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's interesting the way it's visually broken up.
It is.
Yeah. The three bands in the third hour. Yeah.
Yeah, the third hour. Yeah. So neat. And again, very powerful, very visual, the way you can see this. I feel like I hashed that translation. Sorry, folks.
That's okay. You did good.
It's not
I want people to see how we like to just rumble through and discover and do our best and quick searches.
And I was just saying, like at the bottom, I can see the word, I'm just going to get the pronunciation kind of right. Crucifixierunt. You can see the CRU at the bottom. Very cool.
So it's in the smaller writing down there.
Yes, the smaller writing. So this is it. You can go in and do you know what we did? We translated the Beatitudes. We don't have that image on here, but there is one image of the Beatitudes. And because we knew what this animal was, it was the letter B, and I needed help to know that was the B. But once I knew that was the B, and I knew these were the Beatitudes, we were able to read the Book of Kells.
Nice.
It was so cool, so cool.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so this is leading up to the most famous page of the Book of Kells, and whether or not you've ever heard of the Book of Kells, I am pretty sure you have seen the Cairo page. And what I wanted to do is just give examples of the Cairo page from different books, insular books or manuscripts. So the first one is the Book of Deer, and that is a small, like I said, a handheld maybe prayer book. Mm-hmm. And you can see a very it's a stylized Cairo, but it's much simpler than the other two. Mm-hmm. But you can see how this was part of how they made these manuscripts, how they created these letters. And again, you could see this letter from a little bit of a distance and know exactly what was coming with the rest of the text. So that's the Book of Deer. The second one is from the Lindisfarne Gospels, and we will be talking about the Lindisfarne Gospels in detail, but this Cairo page is quite extraordinary. And the Lindisfarne Gospels was before the Book of Kells by about 100 years or so. And so you can see how this beautiful, beautiful execution was, although I'm going to say, looking at it, it doesn't look like it was finished.
Oh, okay, down at the bottom.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it was quite finished. And then the third one is the St. Gall Gospels, and St. Gall is in Switzerland. And one of the places the Irish monks fled to when they were getting a lot of Viking raids is they actually went, I want to say, that wouldn't have been, why would they have fled into kind of different parts that were also occupied by Vikings?
Yeah,
that doesn't make sense. I think it might have been, maybe they brought these manuscripts when Cromwell's men were coming into Ireland. And they went to, because you can find, it's really interesting the things that you can find with the British Catholic art, pre-Reformation art. You will find it in other parts of Europe. Like Our Lady of Walsingham. We talked about Our Lady of Walsingham and some of the things that were in Spain that were saved. So this is something similar. So this is in Switzerland, this Cairo page. I'd love to see it. I'm not quite sure when this one was made. I didn't look up the time period.
I love the continuity of these flowy Kais.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And why? I mean, was it because it was some kind of, were they referencing the cross, do you think? And maybe, how you had these crosses that went from being very simple and they were instruments of torture to something being glorified. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And then,
yes,
this is the page. Just like in the movie, it all comes down to the page. Although they called it the Kiro page in the movie.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, who knows how you pronounce it?
I don't know.
But yeah. So this is, and there are there's another word at the bottom, but do you know what? I can't remember what it says. I'm sorry.
Hey, that's something for our viewers on our Discord page. If you know some little detail you want to share with us, jump in on Discord. Yeah.
This can be a really interesting discussion because this is this whole manuscript. I mean, you could just sit and look at this forever.
Mm-hmm.
So one of those things that I remember David one time said when you're looking at art, one of the things you could ask yourself is, would I want to live there forever? Would I want to look at that forever?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, then if someone said, oh, could you be in that forever? This to me is like a universe. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Could you imagine being teeny tiny and walking along? I just imagine all kinds of things. This is a whole universe. There are animals, there are things that represent the sky. Where is it? So there's some moths. Obviously, you've got all the angels and things like that, but there's some moths, and they represent like the heavens. There's at the bottom, kind of in the middle right-hand corner, there's a little otter with a fish in his mouth, and he represents the seas. You have, again, at the bottom, some cats and mice, and they kind of represent the world on Earth, the earthly realm, and just the angels and the twists and turns. It's everything in the universe. Everything in the universe is on this page.
And I think, is this the one where the cat is?
It is.
Okay, so I'm trying to remember if this is the one where they're going after the mouse because the mouse was stealing a host.
Yes. So the two cats, but then the two cats have two mice on their backs as well. It's just the humor. There's humor in this, and there's playfulness and joy. Oh my gosh, It's gorgeous. It's just gorgeous.
Yeah, we zoomed in on that central part with all those layers just dissolving inwardly and outwardly, and
such an inspiration. And I'm so glad there are artists who are really keen on learning these skills, like Daniel Mitsui, and keeping them alive. And this is something, when you look in the world, this style of art appeals to so many people, and not necessarily people who are looking at it and thinking of it from our perspective in terms of sacred art and our faith. But there's something that draws people in, and that is what sacred art is supposed to do. And so, one of the things I love about this is the opportunity to use this to talk to people and to share the beauty of the faith through sacred art that just so beautifully draws people in. Absolutely. It's just, thank you, monks.
Yeah. And we'd like to thank you for listening to the Secrets of Sacred Art on StarQuest. To find previous episodes of the Secrets of Sacred Art and to send us feedback, please visit sqpn.com/sacredart. You can send us comments by email at sacredart@sqpn.com or by leaving us a comment on YouTube. And join us in conversation by visiting the Secrets of Sacred Art channel on the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. And I'd like to, anyone who sees something in there that they really like or that fascinates them, let us know. It's fun to deep dive into this.
Yeah. And
we're
I
actually
have to say, Sorry, I was just going to say one of the things that I'm going to do tomorrow, Kathryn knows I've been totally freaking out about this for the past, 3 weeks?
Oh, yeah.
4 weeks. So I have the opportunity to see one of the insular manuscripts, insular gospels, the Hereford Gospels, tomorrow.
Oh, in person. Nice.
Yes. Yeah. Because they only show it, they only bring it out for someone to see privately, like twice a year. And I'm going to just hitch on the coattails of somebody else who's going to be there. If I can take pictures, I will put it on Discord.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll definitely do more deep dives into all these images. And we'll be back next time when we'll be featuring our first artist interview with Daniel Mitsui. Until then, I'm Kathryn Laffrey.
And I'm Alix Murray. And we hope you find something beautiful. Bye-bye.